Labas visiem, ir studentam, ir svečiam. Hello all, welcome my students and friends and family. My name is Ray Valsis, and I am the Traditions and History teacher for Saulėtas Krantas, or Sunny Coast Lithuanian School here in Palm Beach. As we're coming up on the Easter holidays, I have a special project for my students, and at the same time I'm going to share it with the group on Lithuanian Traditions. What we are doing is we are baking egg-shaped spiced Lithuanian honey spiced cookies, which we will decorate the way you would a traditional Easter egg. So I'd like you all to join me, and let's start by taking a look at what it is that we will be needing. For the cake itself, we'll need some flour, some sugar, a little bit of salt, a little bit of baking soda, some flavorings such as nutmeg, clove, and cinnamon, all ground, some sour cream, 1 egg, and some butter. The tools that you will need is a bowl, a pan that you can melt some things on, and measuring cups, a wooden spoon, measuring spoons, and a couple of other silverware objects to help us through. Later on, when we make the icing, we'll need confectioner's sugar and either egg whites if you have eggs, or if you don't, you can use a meringue powder. So if you have a Michael's or sometimes the food store may have it, you can get it there. Okay then, we're going to start by adding our 1/2 cup of butter into the saucepan. With that, we're going to mix the sugar, which is a 1/2 cup, 1/2 cup measure. Make sure that you always keep your cup level so you're getting an accurate measure. Baking is much more a chemical science than it is an art, although you can take certain measures that if you don't like a certain element or you want to replace it with something, there are ways to do that. In any case, honey. I don't know if I mentioned that in our ingredient list, but here you go. A little bit of honey, 1/3 cup. So I'm going to take my 1/2 cup measure, since I forgot to bring a 1/3 cup measure, and we're also pouring that in the pan that we're going to put on heat. Since this is a 1/2 cup and a 1/3 cup is a little bit less, that's what I will add. And since I like honey, I'm adding a little bit more. Next, we're adding the ground cinnamon, the ground nutmeg, and the ground cloves. 2 teaspoons of the cinnamon, and you can add less if you don't particularly like this seasoning. Then a teaspoon each of ground nutmeg and ground cloves. Again, you can adjust the seasoning as you like. Okay then, let's take a look at what's going on with the wet ingredients, the butter, the seasoning, the sugar, and the honey. Next, in our bowl, we're going to mix the dry ingredients. 2 3/4 cups of flour. Again, one of the reasons why I use a knife is to make sure that my cup is evened off when I pour it. 1, 2, and again, I didn't bring my third or my quarter cup, so just less than a cup. Then we have a pinch of salt. Pinch. Salt tends to bring out the sweetness in things when it's used in small amounts. A pinch. Let's say 2. A teaspoon of baking soda. This will allow the cookies to rise a little bit so they have some depth to them. One egg, which we're going to hold off to the side, and the sour cream, which we're going to hold off to the side. Take a spoon, give it a good stir. Whoop. And don't get carried away. As much as it is a thickened mixture. And what we're going to do is we're going to combine this with our dry ingredients. And as we combine them, it'll cool down further and start mixing into a dough. We will also mix in 1 egg, and a 1/4 cup of sour cream. And again, you want to make sure that you level off your measurements. Okay, and now just keep mixing it until it forms a dough. as with any dough, it's sometimes easier to just do it with your freshly washed, clean hands. And you'll feel the dough is still rather warm, which is fine. And after kneading it for a few minutes, we're going to make it into a nice little ball. And we are going to wrap it in some plastic wrap. And simply
let the dough rest until it is room temperature for about 30 or 60 minutes.
meld, and it will make the dough easy to work with. This is now the end of part 1. We'll be back in an hour to roll out the dough, cut it, and bake it. Thank you. Love us. We're back again for part 2. This will be the rolling, cutting, and baking. So, as you noticed, I had a time to change my wardrobe, and you'll note that I have a habit of enjoying doing that. I'm a clothes horse at heart. Once again, make sure your hands are impeccably washed and clean. We are going to dust the counter with some flour in order to make sure it doesn't stick, the dough doesn't stick, any excess from your hands. All right. When you have a cold dough, it's easier to bang it out first before you start rolling. And move the dough around as you roll. Don't forget, as you are rolling, to add a little flour to your rolling pin so your dough does not stick to it, and get it to roll out as thin as you can. And if some of the edges look like they're a little bit cracked, we're gonna use that again. We'll just work with this. What I have here is an egg-shaped cookie cutter. If you don't have one, you can create one. It's about 4 inches, this one is, but you could make it smaller or bigger as you'd like. And just cut it out on a piece of paper and then use a knife to follow the pattern. In this case, I'm going to cut out as many cookies as I can out of this. And then I will use any leftover pieces and re-roll it out to make as many cookies as I possibly can. So, hold on one sec. In case they sometimes stick to your surface, Now, what I have prepared here are 2 cookie sheets. I bake a lot, and so I have here what is called a silpat, and that actually works in place of having to butter and flour your pan, or as I have in this one, I have a piece of parchment paper, which does the same thing. And so we're going to continue cutting out until we finish using all of our dough. So I did my first round of cuts, and these are the scraps that are left over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them, roll them into a ball again, add a few drops of water just on my hands, and continue kneading this for a few more minutes, and then I'll roll it out again and see how many more I can make. So I was able to get 2 dozen cookies out of my dough, and if there are any imperfections, fix them as best you can. If there's a little tear, add a little bit of water between the 2 sides and put them together, fold them over, because these are going to have an icing glazed over them. Anyway, if I didn't say so before, preheat your oven to 360 degrees Fahrenheit and put the cookies in, and let's time it for 15 minutes and see what happens. Okay then. Actually, I took them out of the oven after 12 minutes, and they seem cooked well enough for me. They've puffed up a little bit, and you need to let them cool in the pan for a few minutes. Under the pan I have a little grill, and I will take the cookies off the pan and let them cool on the little grill until they are fully cool. The third step will be to ice them, and I'll be back in a little while once they've cooled down. Hi there, we're back again for part 3, the icing of the cookies. This is what you'll need: a mixer, either hand or electric, some food coloring, the basic colors, and I also have some black. Some bowls for mixing, confectioner's sugar, 4 eggs. We are going to break them into only whites. We'll put away the yolks and either freeze them or use them for something else. And for egg whites, if you don't have, or I'm sorry, if you do have a store nearby, they do sell organic egg whites, and you would use the comparative 4 egg white measurements in your recipe, or you could use meringue powder, which is mixed with water in a proportion of 1 teaspoon of powder to 1 tablespoon of water, and you would do it times 4 for our needs. I'm going to use the traditional egg. First, we'll start by separating the eggs. Again, we're only going to use the white part. Try not to get any yolks in there. And I see I did. So I am going to try and remove them before I go any further. Okay then, now I spooned out the egg yolks and completed cracking the last egg. Now I'm going to take 3 cups of confectioner's sugar and add it to my mixer. 4 cups since I had 4 egg yolks. 2. 3. The measurements don't have to be so precise here. And 4. Now I'm going to put in my whisk attachment. Add the egg yolks. And combine until it started on slow, till it starts to form a little bit of a mixture, and it will eventually incorporate all of the sugar. And what you'll do is, on occasion, you stop the mixer and wipe down the sugar off the sides so that it all gets mixed in. And you may have to do that more than a couple of times. And like all electric mixers, you still need to get a little bit in there with your hands. The consistency, should be rather smooth and flowing. Now we're going to take it and divide it into 3 parts. And make sure you clean out that bowl and get as much as you can out of it. Remember, we have 2 dozen cookies to decorate. Now, we're going to experiment a little bit with color. So, I have 3 paper cups, some stirs, and we're going to try and make a brown first. So we are going to take 2 drops, and since we're making it, well, let's start with 2 drops. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm doubling the recipe at the moment. Okay, so we're going to take the red food dye and we're going to put in 6 drops. I already had 4 in there. We're going to put in 6 drops of green. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Remember, these are food colors and every drop makes a big difference. And now I want to add yellow. Because I don't want it to be a dark brown, I want it to be more of a natural onion skinny brown. So I'm going to start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now if I mix them, I get a rather ugly color, greenish brown. So I am going to add 6 more drops of yellow. And yes, food dyes do get on your hands, and yes, it's a pain in the butt to clean. So now I'm going to take the first dish and I'm going to add a few drops. And I'm going to mix it slightly to see the shade that I've gotten. And if you look, it's still a little bit green, so I'm going to add some more yellow. This time I'm going to add it directly here, 1 drop, to see if it gives me the general effect that I'm looking for. And yes, I think it's working to come into a more onion skin, yellow onion skin color. So let's see, I'm going to add to the mixture 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more drops. So far that's 3 times 6, that's 18 drops of yellow to 6 each of red and green. Now let's see how this one does. Much nicer. I think I'm going to use a little bit more. Woo, a little bit more. Let's see what we come up with. So, we've gotten ourselves a sort of green at this point. So again, six more drops of yellow. And you can play with the colors a little bit more, but I'm going to leave this one the way it is. I have a bowl of water back here to wash the brush off in between so I don't mix the colors up. And now we are going towards a dark red. So what I need is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And I'm going to put in black very carefully, 1 drop at a time, because the black changes a lot. And the color I'm going for this time is kind of a deep, darker, beet colored red. That's a little pink. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add another drop of black. To darken it, see what we come up with there. A little bit deeper, I'm going to do 2 things. I'm going to add a little bit more red 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. Now, before I added 2 drops of black, so now we're even, we've just doubled the recipe, and I'm going to add 1 more drop of black. And again, you can play around with these little paints and make sure you get the color that you want. Let's see what this one comes up with. I think that's it. And remember, these tones, we want them to be earthy because they would have been made from natural ingredients. This would have been made from onion skins, and probably if they had a little turmeric. At the time, spices were rare and expensive. Here we've got something that I'm trying to imitate as a beet. The vegetable, the stuff we make cold soup out of. Now, our last color is going to be blue, a grayish blue. So, we're going to start with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And since I see I've been doubling the recipes, I'm going to put in 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now that by itself would be a bright blue. Let's see if I can show you. See what I'm saying? So what I want to do is I want to tone it down by adding black. 1, 2, 3. And that's actually, in fact, the tone that I am trying to set. So, and so we have finished creating our icings. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to glaze our cookies. Now, a little secret. Every chef makes a mistake. I tried the icing and the first recipe didn't work out. And I didn't want to bake a whole new batch of cookies, so I simply flipped over the ones that I tried with and experimented with yesterday. Good for filming. In any case, it should be able to be spooned on your cookies and spread like a glaze. Try and get as close to the edges as possible. If it goes over the edges, even better. You'll see that it quickly settles into a nice smooth finish. As it goes on the cookie. And just continue doing that until all the cookies are done. So I'm finishing up, and I happen to notice that I touched one of my yellows with a little bit of pink. So I'm just kind of covering it over. And then we simply let all these dry until they are hard to the touch. That should take, I'd leave them out for at least an hour or two. These cookies can last, in properly stored, probably a month out of the fridge and years in the freezer. Anyway, this is the end of part 3. Okay, part 4 will actually be hopefully a live lesson, if I can get it together, on Facebook next Saturday, April 11th, 2020 at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or whatever time of the day it is this time of year, New York time. І кілька ще шладеню і в судів.